time for another round of Brandy. Candid conversations over cocktails about all things brand. With your hosts, Reilly Newman and Scott Saunders, the brand developers behind Motif Brands.
Happy New Year and welcome back to another round of Brandy.
Kicking off the new year in 2025.
A lot of things with the new year. You're looking back on how the past year was, how you can improve things about yourself, improve things about your business, and kind of also, beyond what we talked about in the last episode, but looking at going, what are the trends? Where are things going for this year ahead of me? Where do I see things going for my business, for myself, for even your industry that you're in?
Yeah, part of branding and knowing how to evolve as your personal brand means kind of looking at the landscape around you, trying to forecast what are going to be some new trends, what are going to be some things that will strengthen your brand in the landscape of the market and culture and how we do business. And because when you're able to do that and maybe get a jump on what everyone else is doing, that allows you to remain distinctive and stand out from the crowd.
Right. And, probably something top of mind when you do ask anyone now going, okay, what's going to happen this year? Most likely AI, technology is all top of mind because those have fully just permeated every industry, every business. It's gotten involved in every aspect of our lives.
It's not just artificial intelligence we're talking about. It's just business has gotten so efficient and so, every year there's new software, new things to better make production more efficient. Your time as a business owner, transactions, gathering data, right, from your customers and utilizing it for your market. And we're getting more and more streamlined. And then you add the element of, artificial intelligence or, machines, computers, doing so much of that. And that is, I think, where, we are headed not only as a business landscape, but as culture too.
Yeah. So then it's like, okay, what do you do? What do you do as a business? How do you stand out, or do you just jump on the train and follow suit? But, from our perspective, we see this, there's an opportunity here for businesses, specifically for brands, to do something that may not look efficient. It may not look scalable. It may not look overly optimized and down to, the brass tacks of it. But it's like we always talk about, it's like brand is about the relationship. And so if you see this, kind of polar opposite of, Scott was saying with all the efficiencies and numbers and data, it's like, what's the opposite of that? How do we stand out away from that? And that's going to be, being a human, really putting in that human touch, treating people like humans, and what that means for business or even your brand in that way.
Well, I think the way I think how we are approaching it is, if you think about, how you do business today, if you go into a storefront or online, even there's storefronts, there's brick and mortar stores I'll go into, and it's like, if I want a receipt, I have to either give them an email or a phone number, in which case they'll email or text me the receipt of the transaction. But in a sense, they're also getting my data, but as opposed to just printing me a receipt, right? Or you buy anything online, and think of how many brands and companies are only online. You, for the most part, you have to give away all of your data. It's like, you can't just have a business transaction. You have to, in a sense, you as the customer have to go beyond the transaction and give away a bunch of your data that maybe you don't want to, but you have no choice. And it just it makes me think back to when, at the core, how did we as man, as a society, as civilization, used to do business? You'd have a baker in town, and then you'd have a fisher or blacksmith in town, and maybe he needed his new horseshoes for his horse, so the baker would trade a couple loaves of bread for services rendered by the blacksmith, or you would exchange a fish for a loaf. It was that idea of bartering one item for another. Then money came in value, so we're giving gold or coin in exchange for a transaction. But that's how simple it was back then. And now it's so much more complicated, and it was very personable back then, back in the day. And now it's just feels so autonomous. I, as a consumer, I don't know about you, Reilly, and maybe a lot of listeners, but I feel like I'm just a cog in the commerce machine. I'm not a person with a wise dollar to spend, looking for the vendor to spend that with, right? To get that commodity or whatever it is that I'm wanting to in commerce. And we're just numbers, and we're just mailing lists, and that's what we've been reduced. That's what business has been reduced down to, it feels like.
Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like that has become a bit of kind of the par for the course of like business, where now you have the threshold of starting a business has been lowered thanks to technology, which is great because you have entrepreneurs, people get an opportunity to go make wealth and to provide value to the market, and that's good. But since the threshold to start a business is so low, and people can start up little pop-up shops on Amazon and start selling goods from China, and it's being shipped out automatically, or someone can go start something that's pretty much as a autonomous business. It's like the human element has been subtracted because the threshold has been lowered, and so there's less kind of commitment and involvement and engagement. And so then it's going, okay, for the business to stand out and add more value in this new climate where everything is numbers, everything is databases and spreadsheets, and just really just feels very cold. It's like, okay, you need to add back that human element. And what does that look like? How would you describe the human element that makes a business really more of that brand and that relationship?
Yeah. There's small ways, but I kind of, if you think about it, this idea like we talked about with business and efficiency and AI and everything is just fast paced. It's just boom, 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 right? We want to get in. We want the cart experience to be fast, efficient, in, out, done, right? Move on to the next best thing or the next thing in line. And it reminds, and that autonomy of not having a face behind the name, like we're just a bunch of strangers, reminds me almost a great analogy, I think, is you've got the concentrated, fast-paced life of urban life, right? A big city.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody's like ants, congested freeways, subways, people walking, passing by each other on the sidewalk.
Time
just
is money.
Time is money, just fast-paced. And then you contrast that with a small town mentality of where you may not know everybody's name, but there's so many familiar strangers in the area. You have that sense. You know a lot of people by first name. Some businesses, you think about how it used to be without signing a 24-page contract when you accept to engage in business with someone, right? It was like a firm handshake, and there was trust, and people could have a tab like, hey, I'll put on my tab, and every week they'd pay it out or whatever. It was like a small town mentality of human interaction, handshake, trust.
Yeah.
So we're not saying, hey, go back to making everything by hand and doing, What we are talking about, though, is the brand and finding ways, I think, to inject some human elements into the process. Here's a classic example. I ordered something for my wife for Christmas from Etsy, but I got a personalized note in with my wife's present. It was nicely wrapped, and it was handwritten in ink. It wasn't, print. And it was thanking me for the order. It was thanking me for my business.
Yep.
And at any moment's notice, buy from her again if the occasion arose, because that to me won alliance. I was like, yeah, I'm not just, buying something online and it's just like, here it is. And I get an order confirmation and a tracking number. Thanks. And maybe you will make sure I give you a 5-star review.
Yeah.
And those are those little ways to surprise and delight a customer through little interactions of reminding that, oh yeah, there's a human on the other end of this transaction.
Yeah, and you're actually impacting another human, and there starts being that kind of social currency in a way where, just like you said, back with bartering or anything like that, you're trading value, but you're helping each other out, you're making impact on each other's lives, and you're invested in that way, and you're interested in the other person, you're helping them, they're helping you. And it's just kind of funny now because you do have, with online businesses and just internet, it's like everything's become so, like a couple years ago, like 2 years ago, it was all about scalability, having things that scale, grow, all these things. And now I feel like the brands that are going to win are the ones that focus on really like hyper like localized, that not about scalability. Sure, you can have that on the infrastructure side, on the operations, but on the brand and the engagement and the experience of it, it needs to be localized. It needs to be so darn local. And again, going back to a brand that we always talk about is Trader Joe's, and I do feel like that they've done that in so many different ways. They can always do it more, but even the way the cashiers, they always spark up conversation. They always ask you about what you're buying, and then it starts to become like oh, this is like a social interaction. It's
Yeah.
not just, you check out at Kroger or anywhere. It's like, it's just, oh, how you doing? Okay, boom, you're done. You want plastic or paper? Actually, now it's just paper. Right?
But what's funny is like even in some of the non-Trader Joe stores, you break it down more of a personal trait where there's a couple checkers in some other stores that I know are more pleasant to talk to.
Yeah.
Others that you try and you're like, if you're in a talkable mood or whatever. But I mean, so it's still down to the person, right? That's applying that, and that's where even proper training. If you own a brick and mortar store, you have people like that's taking time to reiterate the concept of making the customer feel valued, respected, understood, all those things, right? And going out of your way to be pleasant and not fake. Like it's like, okay, you're reading a manual. Here's your script. This is what you say to the person.
How was your day today?
But make it honest. Yeah, make it honest. And I think you agree with me. But we're kind of projecting this is going to be kind of the new trend, and I think it's following the cultural trend right now of both my I've got two sons in their 20s, and that generation that they're in the mid 20s, early 30s, everything is retro right now, right? Furniture, color palettes, hairstyles, fashion, whether it's getting into 90s acid wash jeans or 70s thing you picked up or 60s or 50s. It doesn't matter. Anything from a thrift shop or antique or vintage is what is popular. I think the point is that we look back and going, wow, this analog watch, this is cool. It's almost like a counter revolt against super high tech.
Well, I almost, like psychologically, I'd almost say that thrift stores are that human touch. Just by buying something at a thrift store, you're buying something that had to have lived through someone's...
Has history.
Yeah. It's not factory made.
Yeah.
It's not straight from the factory. It's not crisp off the shelf. It's not this sterile environment that's coming from it. It's actually like, no, this has history to it. A human used this, whether it's the watch or whatever, there's history to it. And then that's the cool factor. That's what makes it, wow, this thing's like, and it's then probably, more genuine. It's unique. But that's what's crazy is like, we always talk about like a brand having empathy, but it's like in human world, that's like what you hear about with emotional intelligence, about being like, it's like being self-aware and just like reading the room and being aware of people's emotions and actually, taking the gauge of it and then applying how you like respond to that. But even there's a stat that 86% of consumers would happily pay more for a better experience. And so that better experience is determined by that more human engagement, by having more of that depth there where, yes, they may pay more, but that's where the brand can come in and help elevate that experience so that it is more engaging. They're not being rushed out the door. It's not this really, transactional state, but it's actually relational. The person actually cares. And it's much more that, hey, I know you, you know me, and we're treating each other with respect and providing value.
Yeah. And the big key, I want to reflect on this, is a lot of it is, since we're talking about humans, finding ways that you actually have humanity in your deck, your stack, right, in your business, where are the human elements aligned in there that can reflect the brand to the customer, and how can you or create new moments where there can be someone to interact with. But then it's more about training, building that culture in your brand and in your internal brand.
Well, and it could be even, genuine communication of a brand communicating clearly and very just on that human level. But even I'd say personalization is a huge signal of it. Is even when I was staying at a hotel, I've stayed at hotels in my life. And sometimes when I call the front desk, it's kind of just like, hello. And they just kind of answer. Yeah. And the hotel I was at, it was like, oh, what can I do for you, Mr. Newman? And it caught me off guard because it was a recognition of, he probably has some identifier. Oh, this person in this room, that last name, boom. But even just hearing your own name, which, like I think Carnegie would always say that, where the human name is the sweetest sound a person can hear is their own name. And so just hearing that slight personalization added that, oh, he's referring to me as a human. We're recognizing each other, and it creates that social kind of engagement right there, and it adds value. It totally does make it where it's a better experience, and so it just elevates it. But I think that's where, when you look at understanding your audience and what they want and being able to go, okay, how do I add more value to my target audience and who I'm trying to really capture? It's like, I need to add value to them in a way that matters to them, and not just this generic marketing or generic just audience appeasing
or generic with one bit of variable data, which is your name in
Hello,
the email,
Scott.
because you can tell. It's like there's just it's so funny when you get you get spam, right? You get spam all the time, and it's like I've always laughed, like when you get spam through a website and someone is trying to sell you something they clearly know nothing about your actual company or did any work. It's just but there's your name, so they must know me, right? And it's like because that's part of the mailing list they're on, and it's populated through
scraped.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing too, is if you do take some of this and move forward and how applying it, do it with authenticity.
And I feel like it's also like when you think about businesses who, I bet they may disagree with this and be like, okay, but I need to focus on automation. I need to be more optimized. I have to, act like how, Amazon is. I need to be like Amazon. It's like, in my opinion, you're playing the wrong game if that's your approach to your market, because you aren't Amazon, you aren't Apple, you aren't any of these massive, massive brands. And so your advantage is to then focus on being that niche provider for something very specific, or being so specific that you're adding these fine touches and the human element that these large brands can't really do, all the time, because they're too big. They're far too massive to actually do that. And so then you being able to go, no, I'm going to double down, and whether you're a little boutique that's selling, nice clothes, but being able to go, no, I'm going to provide a better experience, because that's what the people want. Yeah, you might have to charge a little more. You might have to go above and beyond in certain areas, but that added value will make you stand out and actually create a nice, really that contrast between, let's say you're competing with Nordstrom or something, and you're actually that provider of that local kind of curation of, what your audience wants. So it's like looking at how your audience, what they see as value, and then going, how can I be empathetic towards that? How can I provide them with more something that's emotionally in tune and that's genuine communication, being able to really like talk to their needs and what they're desiring, but just really lean into that. Because that's, to me, it's like, that's the advantage of the small business. That's really, you can't scale to the massive degree where you're going to offer free shipping on everything.
Yeah. And in today's day and age of just everything becoming mechanized and computerized and just everything, it's stripping it. It's everything is vanilla. And what I love about brands that embrace more of that human quality is it just gives them more personality.
Yeah.
It allows the brand to slightly be distinct from the other brands. You may be selling the same thing and maybe selling it at the same price and having the exact same free shipping and get it to them the exact same time, right? But it's your personality, your brand's personality, that is going to then be distinct or be measured with the other competitor's brand. And if yours can come across more genuine, trusting, caring, I think in today's, where we're moving forward with AI and everything into this year with 2025 and moving forward, the brands that are going to somehow embrace that and bring some of that element back will prevail.
Yeah. And it's hard work, but to me, it's also like, it's by this massive trend, everything going this way, it's fun and exciting because it creates that opportunity for the underdog, for the small shop, for, maybe the medium-sized business who can then start doing the opposite and lean it. It creates that huge gap for them to do that because everyone else is going automated, everyone else is going computer generated, everything like that. And it's like, no, now you lean, go polar opposite and go into what is human, what about your community, more than just charity, but doing community events for your audience, for, the people who are like-minded who buy from you. You can do things like that. And, an example of that is like Red Bull, which they have been community oriented for a very long time. GoPro has. And both these brands put on massive events for the people who align with, who they are as a brand, but also what they represent for the community. Yeah. And it's not about, yes, you can do charity, you can do other community things, but it's like, no, being that kind of town center for your audience and for who they are as humans and what they aspire to be. It's like, that's really where you get kind of the magic ticket. And really, it's like people over profit. It's like, yeah, it might cost a little more. It might be a little painful in the short run, but in the long run, it's like you're building those relationships. And like we always talk about, it's like business is transactional and brand is relational, and just being able to invest more and more into that, because you want those people to come back, you want them returning, you want them telling their friends. And that's really what's going to keep building that trust over time.
Yeah. And again, it's all, it comes down to perception. You know, your brand is perceived. How is it perceived? And is it perceived as having a heartbeat, or is it perceived as
soulless?
Yeah, soulless. Yeah, exactly. So bring the soul back into your brand. Where's James Brown when we need him?
So yeah, in other words, think like a small business. Treat every interaction like that, and take your time. And just like we've talked about on this, is like it's really not about that changing everything to data and spreadsheets and just every transaction and turning it out. But it's like, no, it's like these are humans. Treat them that way, and just keep investing down that path. And I really do think that, you know, looking at this year, it's like where things are going, it's like that could be a huge differentiation for brands.
Yeah, for sure. Again, I mentioned this in a couple of other previously. It's kind of like how it became the real popular thing with sustainable, right? They're organic or they're sustainable, right? And that became the new buzzword for business. And I really believe with AI and automation and everything being man-made, human-made, that is going to become the new plug as a plus that companies are going to want to proclaim. And in a day and age when everything else isn't.
Yeah, it'll become more valuable.
Yeah. So be a small town brand in amongst being efficient and being online and being tech, all those things. Yeah.
And that experience where it's like, how do you add more? Like, yes, the business side, it needs to be efficient. It has to make sense. You can't be losing money on that. But on the experience side, it's like that's where you can invest and add in, like you said, like those little moments of going, how do we make this more engaging or more experiential, and having that human touch.
Surprise and delight.
Yeah. And it's like, it's from saying someone's name to a note to creating community events or just reaching out to a customer. It's like you can create more of that. And again, slowing down time, allowing them to enjoy it and really kind of take in the moment, whether it's Trader Joe's employee asking you a question, or heck, in the line at Disneyland when they make the wait line an experience and make it entertaining, where it's not about how fast the line is anymore. It's about me taking in the scenario. You've reframed it and made it much more of an experience, and that's more human.
Yeah. Well, I think we've chatted enough about the human element in brand for now, but I think this is going to be I'm going to say that this is going to be becoming a theme, at least for the next, 3 or 4 years, with brand and business and where it's going. And so be the business can be about the big city, but your brand and the way you approach your customers, make that a small town, and make it as human as possible. So thanks for checking in with us, and we look forward to the next round of drinks when you check in next time. So cheers.